Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Building Doors Instagram Live for April. I'm your host, Linsay Rousseau, and I'm going to figure out how to make me not have feedback. So today we are going to be talking about changing the game for women in sports. And we are joined by two amazing guests, Adrienne Robertson and Haya Koffler. And we want this to be as interactive as possible. So drop your thoughts and questions in the comments. We'll check out the chat throughout the event. And of course, we'd love to hear from you beyond the live. You can call us at 216-307-1917 anytime during or after the event to leave a short voicemail with your thoughts on today's discussion and the Building Doors campaign. And I also want to give a special shout out to some of our supporters who recently bought us some coffee, which I'm enjoying right now. It's been a long day. Many thanks to Jessica Blue, Uncle Roy Yokelson, Marion Mills, and Deb DeVry. If you love the Building Doors campaign, our live events, our podcast, you can buy us a cup of coffee at buymecoffee.com/buildingdoorsvo. All right, so let us just jump into this. So I'm a big sports fan, and so it was really important to me that, as we try to promote female voiceover artists in, male-dominated parts of the world, parts of the industry, I really wanted to highlight women who are doing this on other sides of the industry. And for me, sports is a big one. And so I wanted to look at sports journalism and broadcasting and announcing. And so I was so happy to get connected to both Adrienne and Haya, who are just some of the most badass women when it comes to having their voices heard in the sports realm. And let me just have you guys introduce yourself before we dive in. Adrienne, you're at the top for me, so let's start with you.
I'm Adrienne Robertson, and I've been around for quite a bit. Public address announcing. My forte is baseball, but I cover almost all sports. I'm the Baltimore public address announcer for the Orioles, and I'm also a voice on MLB The Show, the video game.
Oh, that's so exciting. Yay. And Haya.
Yes, I feel Adrienne's resume is so extensive, so that was the shortest snippet. So please go look her up and read all about. But yes, my name is Haya. I am predominantly an in-stadium host, but I've also done some announcing as well as digital hosting. And I do have a public relations background. So recent events I have covered and worked for the women's national team for the She Believes Cup, as well as the send-off match for the 2024 Paris Olympics. I've also hosted the international friendlies between Chelsea and Arsenal in the United States, which was a huge honor for me as, of course, as the two of the biggest names in football or soccer, I should say.
I was going to say, just for people who aren't aware, the women's national team, we're talking American soccer, football for the rest of the world.
Yes. Sorry, I've been in Europe quite a bit this year, so call it football. And then I've also done Athletes Unlimited for lacrosse, which was wonderful, and then a variety of women's basketball, D1 basketball programs across Big East, Big Ten, and Pac-12. I'm sure there are other things that I'm missing. And then I cheered in the NFL for 3 seasons across 2 different teams as well.
Wow, I am already tired just listening to the work that you have to do, because obviously, as a baseball fan, I know the baseball schedule is rigorous with 123 games a season or something close to that. And obviously, if you're covering all those other sports. So for you two, what sparked your love of sports, and how did that end up evolving into a career, both behind the mic or in front of the camera? Adrienne, let's start with you, since you've been doing this for so long now.
Just at a very young age, my dad and my grandfathers, both of them took me to sports. My aunt played soccer, so I was always involved in going to different sports games and always loved enjoying them, and always kind of like, who's getting to announce this, and would ask my dad a bunch of those type of questions. My grandmother lived right across from a football stadium, a high school one, but it was a very big stadium. And at like night, you could hear the announcer through the house. And so it's just something I always kind of like was fascinated in. And then growing up, I was, doing more and more. High school, I did some sports, but by college, I knew I wanted to work somehow in the sports broadcasting. I directed it more towards public addressing, but at the time I was like, do I want reporting or sideline? And I played with it all over, but from the get-go, my love of sports definitely started at a young age to knowing the direction I wanted to go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's great. And what about you, Haya?
Yes, I
Because
grew
you were
up.
an elite athlete too, right?
I was, yeah. So when I was small, I was dancing quite a lot in a, they call it like competition team or performance team program at a dance studio. And then I had been going to visit relatives, sort of like a complicated family situation when I was younger, and those relatives would take me skiing, and I had no concept of fear when I was smaller. Now that does not exist, but the faster the better. And so there had reached a point where I think it was a ski instructor, someone had approached my mom and myself and said, "Have you ever thought about putting her in racing?" And yeah, so I ended up joining the racing team. However, unfortunately, around like I would say 16 or so, I think I woke up one day and was looking down at the pitch that was like this for the slope, and, and then fear did indeed hit me, and so I knew I knew perhaps being a alpine racer at the Olympic level wasn't in my future, but I had been in a program where we'd wake up and we would train from 7:30 in the morning, sometimes earlier, until 1 p.m. every day, and then go to class from 2:30 until 7 or 6 or so at night, and then would go to the weight room and then would do it again the next day. So it was definitely like an elite full-time level program, which then has served served me well, and of course led to my love and respect for many of the athletes that I work with. Um, but being an individual sport athlete and not a team athlete, uh, the first team that I guess I fell in love with and was passionate about was the women's national team. But it was more so because of what they represented in terms
Mhm.
of society, in terms of sort of being, the women's team that was pushing the conversation and fighting for social justice and gender parity and all those. So it was a lot more than just the sport itself. But yeah, I always grew up glued to the TV screen, especially for Winter Olympics and like the individual winter sport athletes, of course, because I identified with them.
Right. Um, so Adrian, you know, you are the first female stadium announcer for the Orioles, which is pretty historic. Like I said, I'm a San Francisco Giants fan and used to go to games all the time. So Renell Brooks Moon is like, when I think of stadium announcers, I think female voice because that's just what I'm so used to listening to you. But this was a historic moment for you. Did you know? I mean, I'm sure you knew you were breaking barriers in the moment, or did that hit later? Was that ever something that you were cognizantly thinking about?
I say it kind of hit in the moment and it continues to hit, and it does, it definitely hits later because in the moment it was also, you're not going to break that barrier. And it's not so much of wanting to break that barrier. I just wanted to do it, male or female. You
Mhm.
hope you're the best for whatever the thousands of different reasons they're looking. It's an art. One person may really like you, and it's so many variables in how the position even happens. Um, but I wasn't looking at that. But then as it happened and unfolded, it made me realize how big a moment it was for all women in general, and younger girls, that they are growing up and it's more of a norm now, like you said, that they're hearing female voices out there. So it is, something that's continuing to grow. That wasn't the norm, when I was growing up, but it's fascinating. It's fun. And I'm glad I did. That was not my purpose when I started out, but I'm so glad that I did it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great to hear. So Haya, you've talked about your love of sports from a very young age, but you've had kind of a unique path. You went from Capitol Hill to pitch side. So what made you make the jump from politics to sports media, besides just your, love of sports?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess you could say it seems on paper like a jump, but in my mind, it's not really much of a jump at all.
Mhm.
In college, I had been doing some reporting for the student run. Uh, I was, I can't even remember the name of it, but like, yeah, TV reporting student organization, and I was covering a number of the big sporting events, which also at university happened to be some of the bigger, the big game, the Cal versus Stanford rivalry, that also have so much pomp and
Yeah.
circumstance and history around them too, right? So they're not just the game; it's also about like the storytelling and the historical component tied to it. And I was really interested in trying to do that with a role in a team that I was passionate about. But the growth in women's sports just wasn't there yet. And, I was during college, I also had sort of an in-game hosting role. I was only I think it was like second woman at Berkeley to serve as their mic. They call it the position literally mic man. So that's problem number one. But yeah, so Mike Woman, and the first individual who had held the position is none other than Kate Scott, which I'm sure many people know. I think she was the first female color commentator in the NBA, and she's done multiple FIFA World Cups. And she's really, I don't want to, but shattered so many glass ceilings, as they say. I think, yeah, like alongside Adrian, of course. And so, yeah, so very, very high bar. But I just, there were so many times throughout college where I guess this will go into like other topics that we'll discuss, but that I was told, like, why do you even care about covering women's sports? Like, there's no money in it. And so the roles that I was really pointed at were, sort of just team reporter roles for, and I won't say just, but in my they didn't align with me because they were team reporter roles for NFL teams or for MLB teams, and not really looking to do sort of the like community storytelling pieces, whether it would be with nonprofits or just work that the players were doing in the community, or those historical touch points. And there weren't opportunities with women's teams yet in the roles that I wanted. And of course, there's so much to get into about, I'm sure opportunities were there if I wanted to work for free, but I was not in a place financially to do such. Yeah. And so I found that the place that I could affect the most change and utilize the storytelling and rhetorical and written and communication skills that I had learned and acquired in college and apply and do good in the world was in politics proper. And then of course, like as I I really miss sports, and I started working part-time again in sports while also working in politics full-time. I don't want to say like the timing is just right, like opportunity is right when like preparation meets what's that phrase? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
but
preparation meets opportunity. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So as the climate started, or the landscape of women's sports started to change as I was doing those part-time roles, it really seemed as though, okay, now there's the avenue, and now is the time to be able to step in and step forth with what I want to do, particularly in women's soccer, women's lacrosse, women's volleyball, women's basketball, and beyond. Politics and, there's so much going on right now with FIFA coming up, of course, and all the immigration issues. And even at like the Olympics, like sport is inherently political, right? You're talking like national pride, you're talking identity, political like context constantly. So hopefully moving forward, I will be more centrally located at the intersection of the two in sports diplomacy, especially as the U.S. goes forth to host all these mega sporting events.
Wow. I love that. I love that concept of sports diplomacy. You hear that like within music too. It's like music's a universal language. I feel like sports is also a universal language. I mean, Adrian, going back to baseball, a lot of people, they go to the Japanese leagues during the off season, or they go to the Cuban leagues or something like that, to get their skills back up to where they need to be. So Adrian, you have over 2 decades in professional baseball, and then obviously at Georgetown University and the show, the MLB, the show. Over all those years, what was the biggest hurdle you feel like you faced trying to navigate your way up to where you are now?
I think as in any job, proving yourself, because a lot of times you come onto you might come into a different basketball arena, for example, and you'll look around me and there's maybe 15 men and there might be one other woman in that room. So just the thought of, does she know basketball? Does she bring basketball background with her? So I think there's always that every time I need to reprove myself. Yeah. And then once people see that I really do care about the game, I love the game, I actually know what I'm talking about, and I'm not just filling the role. And then it blends. But I do think I do have to I think we have to prove ourselves more over and over again. But at the same time, you do want to always bring your best effort to the job, as I would. So I'd say there's been more hurdles, as in when you're one of the few in the room, you do
Right.
have to represent the best that you can represent and know what you're doing.
Absolutely. And during your journey, were there ever any moments where you questioned, is there even a place for me in this, in this space? What kept you
um,
going?
I definitely questioned that, but I wouldn't say it was so much of a female versus a male. Just
Yeah.
I never went for jobs that had like 5 openings. I went for a job that had 1 opening, and there weren't 100 applicants. There were 600, or there were 2,000
Right.
applicants. So I never chose an easy path.
Yeah.
So I put myself in a harder, harder path to begin with. But I had a dream, so there were definitely moments where I, have gotten no's from teams that ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me when you look at it in other directions. But
Hmm.
it's a hurt, and it makes you question, like, the Orioles, when I was the backup, I was technically between number 2 and number 3.
Mm.
And then there's another team that I went for that I still to this day was very surprised. But anyway, I ended up number 2. But when you're number 2, that's still amazing. But
Yeah.
to yourself, you didn't get the job. So you
Right.
start thinking, well, maybe there's a lot of other jobs out there, or maybe I shouldn't be pushing. And I'm so glad I kept pushing. But that is a door. And then, when one door shuts, there's another's opens. But it
Yeah.
does, for anybody, no matter how much you love what you do, it does make you think when you get a no. And sometimes you can learn from that no, or take one part of it and be like, oh, well, maybe I can change that. So, but it is, when you're in that no, you do question a lot.
Yeah. And for everyone watching, if you're a sports fan or a voice actor or whatever, I think we can all relate to, especially in entertainment, our entire industry is like 99% no. So it's like you just got to push through the pain. um, Haya, I love what you had to say about sports diplomacy and everything. So, for you, obviously, we've seen over the years a huge increase in attention to female sports. Obviously, starting with the women's national team, with the Olympics, and then WNBA getting a lot more prominence as well. For you, what does having a woman in a visible role in sports media matter, not just for fans, but for the industry itself? And you've worked for both, obviously, women's sports and traditional male sports as well. But
Yeah, I mean, I touched upon this earlier, but I feel like there are so many folks that I've spoken with, like young girls, college age, whatnot, who have related when I've said, where I was told that, if I, quote, ever want to make money in this or want to be successful, as many people define success, which is different than how I do, which is like fulfillment. But that I need to work in a men's game, whatever that might look like. And so for me now, especially, in NWSL, really trying to, in women's national team, right? Like the last national team match that I worked, we had a like female identifying DJ. That DJ brought with her female identifying PR and publicist. The head producer for the match was a female. I and myself and my co-host were both female identifying. So the whole like production team, top to bottom, aside from my stage manager, who was staffed by the stadium, and which is separate from the talent that was brought in, were entirely female facing. And the whole concept of She Believes is like empowering young girls so that they can picture themselves on the field 10 years from now, 15 years from now.
Mhm.
So, of course that's like a very thematic event, but we are
Yeah.
seeing it, across the NWSL, PWHL, WNBA, the Canadian Soccer League just launched. So so that visibility component is more important than ever. And I think especially for those of us in media, as well as offering career pathways about like, I don't want to for future employment potential with the NFL. I don't want to say I don't care about the NFL, but for teams and athletes that we care about and feel bonded to, I am going to, without a doubt, any day of the week, have significantly more to say, just without trying, on Pinot than I am about a random tight end. So, and I think that authenticity comes through in terms of, you know, just when you're speaking freely and you're following the sport and you see like my eyes light up because I'm that much more invested. So I just think, especially for a lot of us in media, it's opened a number of doors for us to feel like we can exist and live as our most authentic selves, and you know, set the tone and expand opportunities.
I love that. That is really great to hear. So I imagine with, you know, the chaos of sports and just how unpredictable it is, I can only imagine all of the stories that you all have of shenanigans that have happened during games and so forth. But what is, you know, one of the most, what's an unexpected or, you know, behind the scenes part of your job that people might not know about, or that just is that just stands out to you? Adrian, let's start with you.
I think there's so many to even pinpoint one. But I always find the mascots are incredibly entertaining, and that there's a lot of females in some of those mascots, and usually can pick them out by their dance skills. But I just think what they bring into it, and sometimes actually getting to meet the character behind that, and how much they put into their choreography. As far as like snafus, you just unexpected, you know, minor leagues. We would have like cowboy rodeos, and we'd have one night we had a goat escape, and the goat was literally out in the field, and the players were trying to run while this goat was running among them. So I'm like, you can't write those things up. It was during an actual minor league baseball game. So I think things like that are unexpected, and every night at any major league ballpark or basketball game, wherever you're at, there's the possibility of anything could happen. And just like, you know, the shot that beats the clock, that there's just always something fun and new to experience at the game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, fan interference, people on the field. Oh, it's got to be crazy sometimes. Hi, what about you? What's something, you know, unexpected or?
Oh gosh. I wish I had prepared for this one. I know I see on the Instagram live, because I have it over off to my right. People are saying juicy stories, please. I will have to think and come back with a juicy story,
okay.
and I can drop it later as a comment. I don't have anything juicy. I think that you know, especially as an on-camera host, folks don't always know that we may or may not have an in-ear monitor, an earpiece going to a producer. But even if we do have that earpiece there, and especially if we have two pairs earpieces, we might be talking, saying something that's happening, you know, in the game, delivering a pre-match preview, or talking to a contestant. And then in one ear, we have our immediate producer talking to us. And then in the other ear, we might have like the game presentation plan at large. So that is quite literally, there's multitasking or, you know, stream of thought, but that is three separate conversations that you're looking to and or participating in and constructing. So yeah, I think sometimes people will be like, oh, they're just in pretty clothes and on the field, and there's always just so many more layers to it, of course. You know, each hosting role is different. Some are more reporting focused or game focused, others are more theme or fan focused. So of course that varies. So yeah, so I think that's a behind the scenes. And then, you know, there's always things happening in the stadium. There's always technical errors. The pyrotechnics don't go off, and you're standing there with the mic, and you just did the countdown, 3, 2, 1, and then nothing happens, and you're just smiling. So I think there's a lot of in the moment impromptu that you really, really have to be on top of. And that's why, like, making sure you're at the production meetings and really knowing what the plan is allows you to feel confident for when nothing goes right.
Oh my gosh.
I would actually like to say on the voices in your head, they really are there, and like people joke with you about that, but exactly what she was explaining, when I'm sitting in the press box, I have about 17 voices going on up there. And I might be talking to two people in the field who might be the stage manager, and I'm conferring with them to make sure I have the national anthem pronounced correctly. And if we have somebody throwing out the ceremonial first pitch, their hometown, what their mother's name is, just the basics. So I'm trying to communicate with them. Meanwhile, with camera people, we're getting ready for the lineups, and then I've got a director and someone in music. So, and then meanwhile, because I'm so close to the fans, they might come up and say, hey, how are you? This is my first game. And so I'm trying to actually like talk to them on all this. So really people don't understand that we really kind of have 17 conversations going on in our head at once sometimes. So that part, you're really gonna need to pick a piece. And
Wow.
they might be saying no to a camera guy, not no to me, but there was
Right.
a shot they don't want. And sometimes you might hear, no, 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 no. But that's that part of they're not knowing you, just keep going. So I will say that's a lot of wildness.
So that's insane, being able to juggle all and know like, okay, they're talking to me, they're not talking to me. Oh, I got to pay attention to 5 million things on set. Oh my gosh, that's just you must, I mean, you have to be the ultimate multitasker and flexible, turn on a dime type of personality for this work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I think also too, right, like the longer you're with the team, you sort of pick up on little things or you get to know the fans more, especially. I
Yeah.
think perhaps this relates more so to my role than to Adrian's, but you start to, for instance, right, say my stage manager was called up by the producer or someone else in the marketing team to go attend, like put out a fire on the north end side of the field. And my next hit is on the south side of the field in like 30 seconds. And I don't know where the contestants are because they were with the stage manager, but they're dealing with something that, you know, maybe someone from C-suite called them to do. It's not my question to ask, where is that stage manager? Like, I trust them. I know them. If they're not with me, they have some things to take care of. But then again, the hit's happening in 20 seconds, whether or not they're with me. So then it's my job to like quickly scan, poll people, look for people, know what to look for, know which kind of folks might not be the best to interview, right? If I'm in an O's game and there's some folks in, I don't, you know, I am trying to think like Mets gear, that's not going to go well. You know, I mean, just like little things that after doing this for enough years, you have some underlying cues of, at the end of the day, it's only Adrian's voice on the mic or it's only my face on the camera. And if things go wrong, ultimately, like we ourselves are the ones that are responsible. So, and I don't mean to say that in like a doom and gloomy type of way, but just the reality of there is no one there to save you. So yeah, so if I have those 20 seconds and I pull the wrong contestants and these contestants like curse on the mic, that comes back to me. Right. So like there's so many, there's a lot of unexpected layers and it's live. So
it's live.
You know, we love being live.
Live, yeah. So that's a perfect segue actually. So, you know, what in all of your time doing this work, is there a incredibly memorable moment that stands out for you, either in something that you called and witnessed or in something, you know, an interaction you had? What's something that's really resonated and stayed with you, Adrian?
That's really fun on this spot. There's so many, and that's why like it's really hard to pick one.
Yeah.
I think more it's like the fans experience. So occasionally we will have a 101-year-old throw out a first pitch. Yes. And they're not coming out in a wheelchair. They're coming out walking with their family. And they love the game from every breath. And then you hear a little bit of the history of, you know, how long they've loved the game, who was their favorite player. And then seeing them walk out on that mound, and then doesn't matter how they threw it, that they had a moment with one of their players and threw that pitch. And so I think the moments of seeing some of the crowd reactions, there's so many fantastic sport moments of Cedric Mullins catching a ball that Superman couldn't have caught. Like those moments I'll always hold. And like somebody might have rolled and caught it from second base and they still have the ball in their hand. Those are unforgettable moments. But in my moments, I think it's the neat fan outside the play moments that strike me forever.
Oh my God. I mean, when I used to go to Giant Stadium, or it was AT&T Park at the time, I remember the season ticket holders who'd been coming for 50 years and were covered in pins. And you're just like, oh, that's so sweet.
So we just had the other night, a woman, it was on Sunday's game, who was, I believe, I don't want to get it wrong, I want to say World War II, part of the Korean. She was 97 years old. Seemed to have all her faculties about her, and they were interviewing her, and then she started talking about how one of the players was so hot, and I just lost it because it was just so real but just also she was this commendable woman that was there at
Oh,
the game, and
man.
everybody stood up and clapped for her. Like, and so yeah, so those are what is pretty cool.
Oh, I love that. Hi, what about for you?
Sorry, the question was
Oh,
the
a
impact on me.
memorable moment, yeah, a memorable moment either that you've witnessed or that an interaction you had that's just really resonated and stayed with you.
Yeah. Well, for moment, I mean like overall sports moment
Yeah.
or yeah. Uh I mean, while the playoffs last year, the consecutive sellouts, of course, at the Spirit Games as we entered into quarterfinals and semifinals, and of course, when they went to the final, I think that was the so I can't remember which exactly. It was one of the very well known, inside soccer Twitter accounts,
Hmm.
but they had posted the growth rate over the previous 2 years for the quarterfinal and semifinal matches, and of course, like the consecutive sellouts. That was reading the growth rates and seeing what we have built was really a wow moment, and that was not lost on me in such a short time span. Especially because I had joined the Spirit when they first moved to Audi, and now to show up and just kind of expect it to be a sellout versus when we started at Audi, and that was not the case. Like that of course is a wow moment, or a wow theme, I should say. But yeah, in terms of a specific interaction, I think similarly as the games were becoming more and more steadily higher attendance, more and more young girls coming up and asking me as we were sort of approaching that playoffs period. So heading into the fall, this past season, like, how did you get here? How do you do what you do? Girls were asking me who my stylist is. I'm over here laughing and I'm like, I've lost money on more gigs than I have made money on. So I
Yeah.
definitely don't have a stylist. But but yes, yeah. So it's been really cool. And then of course, I talked about like She Believes Cup before, but any women's national team event, which probably is, I would hope, and probably is the same in most countries. I feel like those, of course, are very widely attended by thousands and thousands of screaming young girls who want to be Alex Morgan or
Yeah.
you name it. So all of my interactions and of course national team events have have been incredibly moving.
That I love that you both gave examples of female fan interactions because according to, as of just last year, according to a study by the Collective, by Wasserman Sports Fan Survey, 72% of women identify as being avid fans of at least one sport. And apparently Gen Zers are just exploding in their support of sports. So women are watching sports, both male dominated, female dominated sports. For you two, in the work that you've done, what do you think needs to happen, either structurally or culturally, to make sports media more inclusive for women? Since we're there, we love it. It's like with video games, women play games, start marketing to us. What do you think? What do you think still needs to happen? Adrian, let me start with you. Yeah.
I would say the attendance needs to keep growing. Being there, supporting it. Working in women's basketball, it each year when you have the Caitlin Clarks coming out and the players that that they're recognizing, they're identifying with more girls out there. I think the more that mom and dad take the kids to the games
Mm-hmm.
and start their passion and love young, and that they can see more of it. I think it starts from the young age and playing in the different pep games and all the different young athletic groups that they can join. But taking your kids to some of the games,
Yeah.
but just girls basketball every year and girls volleyball. I mean, that in some states is just exploded
Oh man.
crazily, but it's so much fun to watch. It's quick games. It's interactive. You're right there on the court. Um, I think a lot of it is the attendance growing because the once you're there, we're going to keep you because I think you're going to love the product. So it's just, getting them in the door.
Yeah. What about you, Adrian? Or Haya? Jeez Louise. Okay.
No worries, no worries. I mean, I think uh, societally, hopefully, get to a place where if for instance, I tell a guy I work in football, they don't, sorry, soccer, they don't immediately say like, oh, tell me what offsides is. I think that there was that meme and TikTok that was going around a lot about girls posting this, or when they're like, oh, I signed up for fantasy football because I actually have a fantasy football league, and the first thing the guy says back is like, tell me how many points a touchdown is. So I think societally, just
Yeah.
doing our best, and hopefully from like fathers and like male identifying figures, to sort of dissuade that type of like discourse. But I mean, and then I think like an underlying thing too is, I think a lot of media entities, want a pretty girl on TV. And I think that has sort of been a theme. And hopefully I think that will change to like, we're putting these people on TV because they're the best equipped to cover these teams.
Yeah.
Not just because they have
Look.
a clock and are a pretty face for men to look at. So that's, but I think especially with a number of creation of leagues, women's sports leagues, we are positioned the best to tell these stories.
And kind of along those lines, was there ever a moment where you realized the impact that you're making on women because of the role? Like, Adrienne, you're now, you are part of the Orioles, tapestry. You are the infrastructure there. Have you ever had like a little girl or mom come up to you, like, where you're like, oh man, my voice here literally is having an impact on someone?
It's happening more and more lately. I get emails, Instagram, Facebook messages from dads and moms.
Yeah.
I'm bringing my kid to the game this Saturday. I really like when we have the field trips. Occasionally, somebody will come up and, oh, my little girl, she started doing announcing. She's been, sitting with the announcer at our basketball games. So you're starting to see kids that want to be like us. And then all of a sudden they'll even send videos. I have one of the 3-year-old that sent me videos of her trying to announce names like I announce. And that made me so excited to hear her just even try to hold the name out. And they're out there and they know they can do it now. So yeah, I get so excited and willing to help all those girls and hope to see them out there doing it someday.
That's so great. And what about for you, Haya? Have you had one of those moments? I'm sure you have.
Yes, but I've been to Orioles games where Adrienne's announcing, and I love, because the people next to me don't know that I know Adrienne, but I love whenever I hear like girls or women just be like, wow, her voice is so cool. She's so cool. Like, I'm like, I know her. Yeah. I think I was telling some stories earlier about like the She Believes Cup and whatnot, but I'm trying to think of like specific moments. I feel like especially a lot lately, little girls will, because the spirit athletes are really good about signing autographs after the game, and they think it's so ingrained, and especially a lot of the more tenured athletes who have been with the team, like Ashley Hatch, for instance. She has really, she was back on the team when almost all the athletes had second, third jobs because they weren't able to, make a living from just playing the sport. And I think that culture of, like, they were just so grateful for each and every fan that showed up, has stuck with them in a way that I do think is really like authentic and beautiful, so that they take the time to sign as many autographs as possible after the game, because they are truly appreciative of the growth. And so, there are so many times when I'm walking to go get my bag to head down to the press conference or leave the stadium, and especially more so within this past year, where as I'm walking by, even though the girls are waiting for Trinity Rodman, as they should be, they'll ask me to stop and sign their cleats or their jerseys or their bandanas and head scarves. So, and I'll always be like, I don't think you need this. I don't think you want mine. And they'll insist. They'll be like, yes, we do. You're the announcer lady. So I think that it's been really, really heartwarming and fulfilling to like recognize that we're such a part of the community.
Yeah. So obviously you two are at, different stages of your careers. And Adrienne, perhaps you are in your dream gig, but is there a dream gig out there? Is there still a project that you're chasing? Or if you're like, this is as good as it gets? Because those stadium announcers, they're there for like
Yeah, so I guess my dream post is like, if I could stay in this job another 15 years and then retire, or maybe make it 20, but like depending on where that is,
Yeah.
I would love to be able to stay in this for a long hold.
Yeah.
I feel like I just got there. This is my 5th season in the major league level, but I truly love it so much. This is what I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I don't, as far as next steps, I hope, like, MLB The Show, I'm with them 25 through 27. I'm contracted, but of course,
Amazing.
I hope they renew that contract.
Yeah.
And that I hope to continue to grow in basketball and grow with other sports that I'm doing. Maybe do some more voice work. I mean, I do some, but do other voice projects.
Yeah.
But my dream job of being an Orioles announcer is the job that I
Is the
want
job.
to stay the job. So the dream is to stay doing that dream.
Yeah. And Haya, I know you have big dreams, girl. So what are you still chasing? I know you talked like you've been spending time in Europe.
Yeah. So I mean, I actually, there isn't any one particular thing. I will caveat this with, like, women's national team was really my equivalent of like Adrian's Orioles, right? So I think after I had booked that gig, I kind of sat, people were like, what do you want in 5 years? Or what's your 5-year plan, as people tend to ask, especially in DC, right? Being based in DC. They love to ask, who do you work for? What do you do? And I was like, we just need to sit. I'm going to sit. I'm just going to be happy and revel in this moment, and we'll figure it out. But yeah, of course, with the Olympics coming to the US, would love to have the opportunity to host an Olympic event, whether that is in soccer, football, or beyond. That said, especially as the women's game continues to grow internationally, which kind of rather ironically, the attendance, right? Even though soccer, football has been around and had this culture and has such a larger culture internationally, the women's games a lot of times are less attended here in Europe. And the Naomi Girma just had that $1 million barrier breaking deal, but that really wasn't the norm. It hasn't been at all for quite some time. So I would really love to host and report on some women's focused international tournaments. That's really my next sort of block point of interest. But yeah, I feel I also at the same time sort of don't feel because the women's game has grown so much, I also feel very fulfilled in a way. And I don't I feel like I have kind of like come and done what I wanted to do and was supposed to do, which was to help to grow it, to build community, to bring attention. And now, right, new NWSL team coming to Boston. Like I said, they're starting in Canada, another team coming to Denver. Bay FC had a killer inaugural season. And there's now 3 professional volleyball leagues in the US, and the PWHL is expanding. And so now, I mean, there really are limitless opportunities, which is also, right, like there's a luxury of choice perhaps. So I might not be pursuing or chasing a specific sports gig and want to go back more into the policy and political side of things for these mega sporting events.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see.
Or they can take us together somewhere exotic and fun. We'll go.
Yes, absolutely. I'll try to get a women's sports gig in Greece, in Mykonos, and then Adrian and I can sit there with our little drinks.
Love that. Oh my gosh. Well, we're almost at the end of our time. Is there anything else you guys want to mention or say to the people checking in before we leave? Adrian, any final words? Or
just my biggest thing is you believe in it, you love it, absolutely have a passion for it. I think a lot of people don't realize you're not just always giving up like the holidays and Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff. And when I say give up, you're doing what you wanted to doing on that day, because granted, you love football or you love the sport that you're doing, but there is a lot of sacrifices you make along the way. But just remember, you're making them because you truly have to love what you're doing and giving back, and it continues to grow, and then it's just amazing. But I think it's a little bit of, you're going to have bumps, but rise through those bumps, learn from those bumps, and if you believe in it and trust in it, go for anything.
I love that. Hi, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think surrounding yourself, and it applies to any line of work, but with people who will say your name in rooms you're not yet in. I think that is especially key as well in the media world and the sports world. I mean, yes, we talked a lot about having multiple earpieces and multiple voices and so many things going on. And yeah, of course, there's a certain level of inside out knowledge of the team at hand, but also proficiency in ability to multitask and also, you know, know production and know certain technical elements. But once you're sort of at that bar, there are a number of people who are also at that bar. And what is determining whether or not you get booked for gigs and or, you know, your name is in conversations is, of course, the folks that are have worked with you and or rooting for you and or like earlier I talked about, you know, authenticity. And I think that's like for me in particular why I was able to grow in the soccer space as quickly as I was is because I surrounded myself with the right people who knew what my driving motivation was. They knew me, they knew my story, why it was more applicable to the soccer space than perhaps other sports spaces. So I think yeah, that sort of resonates regardless of what industry, but especially in this.
Oh,
I
that's
think
great.
what you just said, I if I can elaborate on that, it's so
Please.
important. The friends that I've made from the very beginning all the way up to now, and it's amazing how some of those same friends are at the Orioles or within the organization or MSA or somewhere nearby, but how those same hardworking people, but not forgetting any of those people and helping as many others as you can along the way. You just never know. And it's just the small things can help someone else, and doing other people's jobs. Like when you want, I wanted to be an announcer. Well, that's not available. Put your foot in the door and learn more about that sport and meet people. So it's just you could do other roles, but those other roles help me to do the role I am now, because there's things I wouldn't have known if I hadn't been on the other end.
Yeah.
So I just getting your foot in the door, making those friends and trusting people, because there's an amazing group of people that I work with that make the magic happen.
And someone will open the door for you and you can open the door for someone else. Oh, thank you. And that just ties us into what we're all about here at Building Doors. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. And of course, everyone who tuned in, thank you for your support and for listening to these amazing stories. And if you enjoyed this Instagram Live and you want to support the Building Doors campaign, you can buy us a coffee. We need so much coffee in this industry. Go to buyacoffee.com/buildingdoorsvo to donate. And if you want to keep the conversation going, you can call us at 216-307-1917 anytime. Leave us a short voicemail with your thoughts on today's discussion and the Building Doors campaign. And make sure to check out our next event. Our next live event is going to be on LinkedIn with Marion Mills, and she's going to be talking about Behind the Voices, mental health and why it matters. And that is going to be on May 14th at 12 p.m. Eastern on LinkedIn. Adrienne, Haya, thank you again so much for being here. It's been truly a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. And and I think this goes for Adrienne too, but if anyone has follow-up questions, I think both of us are on social media. Feel free to drop us a DM, ask questions, and or like my business email should be in my bio as well. So
amazing. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.